So as a speculator, whenever I see these characteristics, I get very, very excited. Hello, this is Fabi with Equity.Guru, and today I am going to tell you about a company that is very small, point number one, in a market that's very small, point number two. But point number three, and the most important of all, it is a growing market that's growing very quickly. It's probably an element or metal that you are not thinking about investment-wise, but I bet you have it in your home, and the world is set on consuming more and more of this stuff only within the next 5 to 10 years. That's the prediction. Beyond that, I'm pretty sure it's going to not be such a small market anymore. So let's dive in. So here we have Mag1 products, and now the first thing you will see is that it has a strange word to mining in its name, product. That's not common at all, and you will see that it's because this is more of a technology company and not so much a mining company. However, it deals with something that is usually mined. Now, if you don't know anything about magnesium, like myself, I only knew magnesium as a supplement that you take as an electrolyte supplement. It turns out that magnesium is actually a very important metal because it is very, very light. Now, what that does is that is usually mixed in with other metals in order to make things such as alloys for airplanes, cars, etc. Now, something that really caught my attention was that I read this little tidbit by the automotive world in February of 2016 that is completely unrelated to this company that we're talking about as far as I know. And they say by 2025, which is really just around the corner, on average 100 pounds of magnesium will be used in each vehicle, up from 10 pounds in 2016. Now that's huge. That is a 10 times increase in roughly 9 years? Considering that we're already in 2019, almost 2020, this is actually coming very, very fast. Another thing is that magnesium is mostly produced by China. I would say that 60 to 70% of all magnesium in the world is currently produced by China. However, as you can see, as of 2018, China has started to basically curb their exports for magnesium. It probably has partly to do with the trade wars that we're going through, but part of the reason is that China wants to make its air quality better, and for that it requires more of these exotic metals. Now that means that in the USA they are also just using more and more magnesium for EVs. There is actually an EV battery being tested with magnesium as one of its main components, so that's something to watch out for as well. But there is a very, very, very small market for magnesium currently, which is actually a huge opportunity because it looks like demand is going up consistently year over year. And you can see it right here. Global primary magnesium demand will increase 6.4% annually. This is revised upwards from 5%. Just 1 year ago, it was believed that 5% yearly was the demand increase, but now they've had to come back and say, you know what? People will just need it more and more. It's escalating, and so we're going to revise it upwards to 6.4. That is huge. That is a huge increase on something that is already in huge demand. I mean, we talk about copper as if it's possibly one of the most exciting metals to invest in for the next number of years. And it's pretty much accepted that the demand increase for the next, 20 years for copper is something around 3.5% per year. So it's a small market. You have to be very careful with the small markets, but that means that the opportunity for a price squeeze upwards is very, very high. Okay, enough about magnesium. Let's talk about Mag1 themselves and why I said that this is more of a technology company and not so much a mining company. Well, what they are doing is they have agreed to analyze the tailings from two previous mining operations in Canada, which have around 20 to 30% of magnesium. Now, the tailings are basically just waste and it's just sitting there. These mines, as far as I know, are not operational any longer. And so these piles are literally just mountains of waste rock that are sitting there with no purpose. And what they are doing is they have built a pilot plant. And the most important thing here to think about is not really how are they going to mine it, because it's just sitting there. You don't have to drill any holes. You don't have to have a geologist per se that will try to delineate a potential resource or reserve of what you have in the ground and, cross your fingers and hope that that's what you actually have in the ground. This is more like, okay, there's piles and piles and piles of this stuff. This is the average that you can get. They have agreed to pay about $1 per ton of material because this is essentially leftover waste. Their focus is really on getting the ore from these leftover tailings, which, by the way, there are more than 100 million tons of, and getting it to commercial production. Now, in order to do that, there are many different phases of production which are fairly expensive, and there are also many different products that you can extract and actually produce from that initial ore. So this is their integrated road to revenue, which will show that they can produce high purity MgO. There's also the commercial plant that they are going to build possibly in 2021. And there are different types of products, recycling, MgO wallboards, etc., that they can make from this one huge pile of waste. Now, the company is sitting at a very, very small $9 million market cap today, which is up quite a bit from its lows, I believe, back in March. Two questions that investors or potential speculators need to ask themselves is, number one, how much is the total amount of tailings worth approximately? This is something that we should try to assess. And also beyond that is, what is the stage of production that they're in right now? So how is the pilot plant doing? Are they able to generate products that are commercially viable today? I believe by the end of this year, we're going to know whether their plant is fully functional, because they are upping basically the output of their plant. And once they have the mentioned 100 kilograms per hour, which is right here on their latest management discussion and analysis, you should definitely read this. Came out on March 31st of 2019. So we need to assess, okay, how much is this actually worth? And we might find that in a dollar amount, it might be way too much even for the current demand of magnesium. The bigger question is, how are they going to fund this plant? How much money is actually needed? And how much can they make per pound or per ton of produced material? If they're paying $1 Canadian for each ton, and they only pay that when they use it, which is a great deal, well done to the person who signed this. But once they have this going, how much does it actually cost to produce each pound, and what sort of profitability can we expect as potential shareholders? And that's really the big question. And this is why I believe it's really a great thing that they have mostly engineers in management and board. What you want for a project like this is people who are absolutely obsessed with making things more and more efficient, and there's nobody better than a good engineer to get that job done. And one of the less obvious benefits of Mag1 products is that their process is very environmentally friendly. First of all, they're not actually mining, they're just processing waste ore. That means that they're really disturbing the environment less and less than any mining operation that you could imagine around the world, and their carbon footprint will be very, very low, especially compared to most mining operations. Some deals that are in the works is buying 50% of a magnesium alloy recycling technology. They are fully funded for possibly 6 months to a year. That's not really counting the costs that are going to be involved in their commercial plant. I think they have a full year of run rate for sure with their latest private placement. But one of the good things is that because of what they're doing, because of its environmental slant and how it's better for the environment to just go through our waste instead of trying to mine for more, they actually have certain facilities that other miners wouldn't have. For example, you can probably get licenses much faster. You can get grants from the government. You have partners in the environmental agencies that are willing to work with you much more easily and on better terms than most mining companies. So these are some of the things really going for them. I would watch this very, very closely. I am thinking that the actual stuff in the ground that they have is potentially in the high 100 millions towards the $1 billion count. The question is whether they can actually produce it profitably. And I think that magnesium itself is very difficult and expensive to produce. The cost of actually acquiring the tons is very low, so can they make it for cheap? That is the big question. If they can make this thing for a profit, then watch out, because once the sales start rolling in, I think that this could be one of those stocks that goes absolutely insane. So this is just a guess, very speculative on my part, but small market, growing market, extremely low cost of acquisition. It's all down to production now. Can they produce the things that they're trying to produce for a decent price? So I'll be eagerly awaiting those results, and I believe that you should definitely keep an eye out for Mag1 products. There are other magnesium companies, if you do your homework, that are valued at higher costs just simply because they were able to put a number to their resource. So if these guys can do something like that and allow us investors to understand the actual numbers behind the project, then I think, yeah, well, I don't even want to take a guess on how high this could go, because I think I would be very conservative. So that's Mag1 Products, MDD.CN in Canada.